It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, April 16th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. It is doing our last game preview of the season, Russ.
Hard to believe. Yeah, we've really we've gotten through it.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. You can find our show for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A bit of news yesterday. Hunter McDonald got his ELC. I think it's something we definitely expected given how high the organization has been on him for a while now. He's currently on a PTO with the Phantoms, has gotten 2 assists in 9 games down there. One was actually a really nice shot from the point that then
Mhm.
Tanner Lazinski got the rebound off of on Saturday against Bridgeport, but it was a really good overall play on his part. I think that, again, the team is high on him. This is one of those we'll see what happens kind of ELCs, right?
Right, because it's only a 2-year. So by 23, you're really not quite known for sure at that point, but you have an idea. So, they'll get a good look at him.
Yeah, I think that is the plan. Just a quick note, obviously, with recording times relative to the games from last night,
We don't know anything.
we don't know anything. So, but of course, we will keep track of all of the results from Monday night, how they affect the Flyer scenario. So keep an eye on our socials
I'm still doing the
for
math. I can't
updates.
figure it out.
Yeah, basically, we need everybody else to lose, and that's all that
That's
matters.
true. That's the easy version. You went the
Yeah,
easy way.
yeah. But looking at the Flyers practice lines from yesterday, it looks like he's gonna continue on with the winning ways from the game against the Devils. Seems like there won't be any changes in the lineup there.
Because why would you change anything?
No, I honestly, I don't blame him in this
Oh, I
scenario.
do. Cam Atkinson shouldn't be playing. I'm sorry.
Look, I agree.
So that's
I
why I blame
agree in
him. I'm sorry.
principle.
I can't just let
Yeah,
him off the
I
hook.
just
I had this
I
discussion on another show. It's like, yes, you're putting Cam in because you don't believe he'll make a mistake, but you also don't believe has a chance of scoring either. And to me, that's not good. But that's what they're
yeah.
doing.
I mean, again, I would put Lixel in instead of Atkinson, but I understand just from a, juju kinda thing going into this last game that's a must win. You don't wanna rock any boats here. Like, I get it. I completely get it. But yeah, I just from a philosophical standpoint, I still disagree with it
Yeah.
overall. Looking at the Flyers versus Caps, because that's all we got left, Russ.
Oh,
Of
don't make me
course,
sad.
I know this has been like a wild season,
It
and just
has.
to think
There's still a whole
about,
hockey world out there, Rach. I'll be
I
covering
know,
it too. So.
yeah, there'll be playoffs. There's the draft coming up, lots of tournaments.
Combine. It's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of good stuff. But this season has been very interesting for the Flyers. Flyers versus Caps in March. The Caps won 5-2. That was not a good game for the
No.
Flyers in
Oh, I
any
remember
stretch.
that was bad, man.
Yeah, and then prior to that, the Flyers won in a shootout. But I think that was kind of before Ovechkin kind of got his groove back.
It is. It is. And now, chances are now they don't want it to go to the shootout.
No.
That would
No,
be
not
bad
at
news.
all.
Yeah.
Um, as far as the Caps are looking right now, Nick Jensen was injured in the game against Tampa on Saturday. That was a horrible missed boarding call,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Uh, but as far as last night's game for the Caps, Dylan McIlwraith was in as somebody we've seen very frequently
Oh yeah.
on the Hershey Bears
Yep.
and in our Phantoms coverage, and we know he's a good player.
I mean, he's a tough player. He's a guy that could play and not kill you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, Ethan Bear has been in the player assistance program, so he's not there.
Right.
They said, I believe, a few days ago that Rasmus Sandin is not expected to return until some ways into the playoffs at the
Okay.
earliest if the Caps make it. But the goaltending question is going to be interesting. Obviously, we know Samerson is going to play for
Right.
Flyers tonight. There's no reason, to do otherwise. Charlie Lindgren played last night. Will he play in the second half of a back-to-back with the season on the line?
Yes. Yeah, he's their guy. I mean, Kemper's still there,
Yeah,
but and even though he's
yeah.
won a Stanley Cup, this team is bonded with Lindgren, so I think it's Lindgren.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. It's just such an unusual circumstance for a team to have a back-to-back to end their season.
It is. It's a
And
weird. This whole schedule is. we- I didn't like the whole schedule this year at all. Honestly, I don't know anybody that did. I'm sure you feel that way.
yeah, there's definitely some weirdness. I mean, I will say overall the Flyers had fewer back-to-backs than they normally do,
Right.
and so, knocking on wood, thank
Yeah, I
God
remember
for
there were
that.
years they'd
But
have 9 or 10, but
mhm,
still, like, just the way these games were, the way that the Metro games, like, teams hadn't played
yeah,
each other until, like, a month ago for the first time, like, that kinda stuff was nonsense.
right. And I think, the playoff format feeds into that kind of scheduling.
It does.
The Caps have been 3-5-2 in their last 10, so they've been teetering a little
Nobody's been
bit.
great. I mean,
I know.
Pittsburgh's been the best, but this is
Well, Islanders, I would say, have been the
yeah, I
best.
guess Islanders a little better, but nobody's been super fantastic. Otherwise, they would all be in already. Like, that's the
Yeah,
reality.
yeah, we would know the answer to all this and not have to do complicated math.
That's true.
But, they did win against Tampa on Saturday. We talked about
Yes,
that on yesterday's show when we were talking
we
about the
did.
playoff scenarios. Played the Bruins last night, a tough matchup. Again, we don't know the outcome of that game quite yet. But prior to that, they wanted an important game against the Red Wings, who were all battling in, this competition for a playoff spot. But they lost to the Sens and the Canes before that in all this kind of up and down. So really, I feel like anything can happen with this team. They could come out strong and just dominate, or they could look helpless out there, and either
Sure.
would be completely expected.
Yeah, I think for sure anything can happen. I would say for that, honestly, you do worry about having Alex Ovechkin on the other team. Like, that's a legit worry.
I think so, but their top two lines are both very strong,
Yeah,
and like even down into the third line where you have Henrik Slapierre, who has gone back and forth with Hershey
he
in the
has.
past, but he's a pretty solid player and dominates games down at the AHL level. Sonny Milano has had a decent
He's
season,
done
and
well in
then
Philly for sure.
yeah, yeah, and Max Pacioretty is
Yeah,
is a solid third liner for
he
them.
is.
So, of course, our old friend Nick Aube-Kubel is on the fourth line of this
He'll be
team.
banging and
So,
crashing. Yep.
yeah, as always, and Beck Mallenstein's on that line. We know him
Yep.
from Hershey again. So they've got a bunch of Hershey guys that we know very, very
But that's
well.
their style, that's
Yeah,
they have this is what the Flyers want to be, is a team like the Capitals, not necessarily this year's Capitals, but one that can graduate a lot of guys and get them playing in the lineup. That's what I'm always wanting them to do and strive for. And if you count up those guys, as a lot of them are through their system.
yeah, yeah. If you look at the Caps I pulled stats since March 1st to get a sense of where these teams are. The Flyers have the third worst goals for per game, and the Caps are the 10th worst. So, like, neither team is
No.
great, but the Caps are slightly better. But where the Caps are a lot better than the Flyers, shockingly, it is the power play.
Yeah.
The Caps have the seventh best power play at 26.9% since March 1st. And that's been a huge part of the overall turnaround of the season for them.
Yeah, and Ovechkin's turnaround that's
Mhm.
affected that number. Carlson being healthy has affected that number. Like again, don't put this team on the power play. You don't want to see Carlson and Ovechkin on the power play.
Nope.
You don't. And so like dumb penalties, don't get into it with McElrath. Like you can't have it be as low event as last game, or you're not going to win this one, but you can't be super high event either.
Right, and that's where, score situations come into play here
Yeah,
because the Caps are winning 71.4% of one goal games, which is hugely dominant.
it
Flyers
is.
are only at 500 in those situations since March 1st. But the Flyers tend to get a lot more third period goals than the Caps because they can be a come from behind
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
team. So I think, there's a little bit of, oil and water coming together here with these two teams with those stats. But I do think that if the game is close, like the Caps do have the upper hand here.
Yeah, they do. This could be a game though where um, the Flyers pull their goalie uh, in overtime because they don't want it to go to the shootout. They need the 2 points, so that's a possibility in this game.
That we don't want an overtime at all to
No,
begin
but I'm
with.
just saying. But if it were, I think they would have to pull the goalie. I just
Maybe,
feel that. So, but
maybe.
whatever. It's all down the road.
Right, right. Well, we'll see how it goes. Last game of the season again. In the meantime, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms are in their own playoff hunt, and we will talk about them and some of the new guys there coming up next.
It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Maybe bet the 76ers. I feel somewhat good about them right now. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book.
This Wednesday at 7 Eastern, we have Locked On's NFL Mock Draft live streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find their ultimate 6-episode series on Wednesday at 7 Eastern to see who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise with live reactions from local football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft Wednesday at 7 Eastern, streaming live on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Of course, on tomorrow's show, we will have a recap of game 82 and our end of the season hot takes before we really dig into stuff. And we don't even know what's
We
happening
don't even know
next.
what the stuff is. Like, we don't even
Yeah,
know.
I
We know
know.
nothing.
But I know ignorance is bliss
It is.
sometimes. But we'll also be answering your mailbag questions. So get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. Send us a message on Twitter or comment on our YouTube channel. So I think one of the bigger questions for the Phantoms is who from the Flyers can go down to the Phantoms to support them in a potential postseason. And of course, based on the paper transactions that we know about, Addard and Jinning and Lixel were a no-brainer. But there was some question as to Bobby Brink, right?
Yeah, as much as I could tell, looking at old transactions, it looks like he did go down at the right time and then came back up. So I believe he can play.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they will send him down,
No, I mean
but
that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but we do believe these four guys are eligible
right.
to play, and I would say those first three are definitely gonna go.
They're gonna go.
So as far as the Phantoms go in their playoff hunt, they were 1-1 this week, losing to the Hershey Bears 4-1 on Friday, and then won in overtime versus the Bridgeport Islanders on Saturday. And I think there were two big lineup notes from those games where on Saturday, Emil Andre was scratched, and but also Elliot Deno was healthy scratched.
I mean, no shock there. I mean, he just, he had that goalless streak going, and he's just not been the same player this year. There's too many
Yeah,
guys. I can't blame him.
yeah, yeah. And then of course the other big lineup update was Alexei Kolosov, and we were asking for the last week or two, when was he going to get into a game? Well, he did on Saturday in that overtime win. And he had, I would say, a good game. I wouldn't say a great
Yeah,
game.
mixed reviews. I'd say mixed reviews.
Yeah. So 24 saves on 28 shots, 4 goals against, but 1 goal against was a penalty shot where he got beat glove side, first
Yeah,
penalty shot in his
yeah,
first pro game over
yeah.
here.
Well,
Um, that's
that's
tough.
tough. Yeah,
Yeah, and then the other thing in that game is Bridgeport got 2 power play goals in that game, so of the 4 goals against, 2 were power play goals and 1 was a penalty shot.
yeah. I mean, sure, but he didn't, lock it down either. So yeah, we're
No.
hoping for better things. But now, when you start talking about how the other teams did, you'll find out that there's a little bit more drama here.
Right. So looking at the playoff race in general, Hartford did clinch a playoff spot. So it's almost impossible for the Phantoms to catch them at this point.
Right,
They would have to win out all 3 games this upcoming weekend, and Hartford would have to lose all of their remaining games in
right,
regulation. But that sixth and last playoff spot is still theirs for the taking, very likely to make it. They can clinch with 1 point at Bridgeport on Friday, or Springfield loses one of their last 2 games. So
right.
it seems very likely.
It does. But Springfield's picked it up. We have to say they're not dead
Yeah,
like they were before.
correct. Correct. So they do have a big weekend ahead. In addition to Alexei Kolosov, we do have a couple of newer guys that we're still trying to keep an eye on. Hunter McDonald is one of them. We talked
Mhm.
about getting the ELC. I would say he looks fine. He did have that one good play that I talked about,
Yes.
and I think he's definitely learning, and that's what you do in the
Oh,
AHL, and
yeah,
he's
he's learning on the spot here. No question.
yeah. Yeah, so I wouldn't say he stands out in any particular way, but I think that he's doing the right things in terms of practice, in terms of,
Yeah.
trying to work within the
I mean, he's
system, and
21, like, you just he's
yeah,
coming out of college. Yeah.
yeah, he's just doing what he's told. And I think right now it's about, responding to coaching,
Yeah.
responding to, playing within a different system. And
Keep it
and I
simple,
think
all that stuff.
yeah. Yeah, and I think he's doing okay. I would say, similar things about Matt Miller. He did score in his first game. We talked about that last week.
Yes.
Hasn't gotten any more points since then. He looks fine. Again, I think that
Yeah.
he's in a similar boat, learning the
Yep.
ropes, learning
Yep.
the system, and I think that's all we can ask from those guys at this point.
No, I agree. I'm not looking for anything more than that, honestly.
Right. Well, we have a lot more to talk about with this Phantoms team. We're going to talk about some of our other key prospects and how they're looking at the moment, not just the new guys. Plus, we're going to look ahead to the possibilities for this weekend coming up next. The regular season is coming to an end, Flyers fans, but I want to remind you you can still win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football on Sleeper, and entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether NHL superstars like Connor McDavid, Nikita Kucherov, or Nathan McKinnon, or Flyers standouts like Travis Konechny will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you have to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Flyers fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail those picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, Russ. So turning our attention to some of our other top prospects there, this is where things are a little dicey because we have, in theory, the top Phantoms prospects already up with the Flyers and not playing in Ronnie Attard and Adam Ginning and Ollie Lexell, right?
Yeah.
And, Cooper Marody aside, we know he's a solid player and he doesn't really count as a prospect, right?
No, he's older.
Right. So now we have Samu Tuamala in, the top spot in terms of prospects that are playing down there, and he's still just struggling here.
Yeah. Don't love the end of the season the way it's kind of gone for him. The second half, really. I mean, he was
Yeah.
good. He's hit a wall for sure.
Yeah. And, I just wonder at this point, as this season is coming to a close, like, what do we tell him in terms of like, what are the expectations for his off season and going into next season? And what kind of shot is he realistically going to get?
With the Flyers, not any shot. But he needs to stay in Philly, stay behind, work out with with the guys, and see what he can pick up from him because he needs to get his confidence back. The shot, I mean, the skating's good, the shot's good, but his confidence isn't good, and so that needs to come back. He needs to still work on his overall game. No, he'll be on the Phantoms next year. I mean, I have no aspirations of him making the team.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just wondering, like, how does he kind of get back on the right foot coming into next year? And like,
Or
is
have a
there
good
anything
playoff
he
if he
can
gets
do?
in the playoffs and gets hot. Of
Yeah,
course, that's always a way.
right. And then, the other situation has been with J.R. Avon, where he hasn't maybe progressed as much as people have wanted. He is like, he's 20, going to turn 21 over the
It's hard for
summer.
a 20-year-old in that league.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like he definitely has a lot more runway than
He does.
Tuamala does. Yeah. And I think that he has that space to grow. So I think if he
Yeah,
like gets a little bigger over the summer, works on
that
some
would help a
key
lot
things. Yeah, and
because his
and I
speed's
think
pretty good. It's the
right.
strength.
Yeah. And I think that if they're just clear with him over the summer on positionally, if they're going to put him at wing or center next season, that'll help him, figure out what to work on, I
Yeah.
think, a little bit better too. And just kind of make a clear decision for him and not just be like, well, we'll see,
Yeah, and I hope they don't leave it up in the air like that. I'm with you. I like, a little bit more of a game plan for sure.
Yeah, and then Elliot Deno, already mentioned he was a healthy scratch on Saturday. I listened to a little bit of Lappy's media availability there, and he says, "Yeah, it's time for him to watch a game from the box because clearly whatever we're doing with him on the ice isn't working." And I feel like we're in a danger zone with him.
Well, I mean, they definitely are. I mean, there's no question about that. I'm trying to look up his salary like his contract situation. I think he's an RFA for one more year. That's what I think.
Yes, he is.
Okay. So, again, like he and Brink are RFAs for one more year. Um, I could see them signing Brink for 1 year and say, prove it to us like they did with Frost. I don't know. Denoye is up in the air. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think he would have to make, considerable progress next season, for them to go more than just that one more year, qualifying offer. I certainly
Yeah.
wouldn't give up on him yet, but I do think there would have to be some serious work done in the offseason. He'd have to come in looking a lot better in
Yeah,
the
he would have
fall.
to come in looking better. Yeah, I think, right now, the problem is, yeah, so he's an RFA in 25-6. So he's got one more year under
Mhm.
contract. The problem is
Yep.
he's one of their highest paid guys. And so that's another thing. So he really does need to come through.
Yeah, I think so. I think, that's why when I've talked about the Phantoms and wanting the right guys around the prospects and how important that is for guys like Denoye, because
Yeah.
like they need solid AHLers unless they're going to make an all prospects line, which they don't seem like they do very often.
No, and they don't
They
have
mix it
to.
up.
They don't have to, but looking at it with 2 more years on his deal, I mean, Gendron needs to come back.
Mhm.
And they need to play him and need to see him and not bounce him around between the up in the press box. They got to look at him and really see what's going on with him, because this year they kind of just pushed him out of the way. Okay, but next year they shouldn't do that.
No, and I think that's gonna be a huge factor as well, and putting together again the right AHL team to support the prospects that they have and whatever new guys are coming in onto the team. Yeah, obviously we know two of them already in McDonald and
Yeah.
Miller, and Kolosov. I assume will be part of the
Yes.
Phantoms next year. So we've already started to see the pieces fall into place. Now we got to see who's going to be around them. I certainly hope Marody is part of that team next year,
Maybe they
and
sign Massimo Rizzo. Maybe they don't.
maybe they don't. We'll see. We're still on Rizzo watch as of recording here, so you know I think that it's going to be a tough road regardless of how this playoff scenario goes this year, because they're going to have a tough opponent in the first round no matter what plays out here. So I do think the Phantoms are in a similar kind of boat as the Flyers here in terms of making sure we make the exact right moves at the end of this season going into the off season.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, most of these guys will be back. Uh, it's rare when they make a trade that includes, an AHL, or it happens, but it's rare. So, but some of these guys, it's the last roundup. Like Brink,
Yeah.
he's probably going to start with the Flyers. It's his last roundup. Denoye probably, even though he's got an RFA year after, if he was this bad, they could walk away from his RFA contract. Like they may, because at that point
Yep.
they'll have more prospects coming through, some of the
Yep.
college ones. So, you know, yeah, these guys they've got to get on it. Lisinski, we don't know what's going to happen with him,
Ah,
which is a
that's
shame
a
because I really think
heartbreaker.
he should be back. But you
Yep.
know, we'll see.
Yep. Me too. Something else just to tag on, because it's a similar situation with the Flyers. They're gonna have to figure out a power play improvement. It has not been good in the latter half of the season. They were over for the weekend,
And
and
this is like
not ideal.
pervasive in the entire organization now. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
it is.
it's crazy.
But we are hoping for a positive result heading into a playoff scenario for the Phantoms. Like I
Yep.
said, with just 1 point against Bridgeport on Friday, they could clinch that playoff spot. They are playing Wilkes-Barre Scranton on Saturday and Charlotte to wrap up their regular season on Sunday. So
it's not a cakewalk.
no, 3-3 is always a tough weekend, and ending against Charlotte
Bridgeport is the
on
team they have to do it against, honestly.
yeah. Yep, they do. And Bridgeport has been a struggle for them this season. So we shall see. But that will do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow to talk about Flyers versus Caps, the latest with the playoff scenario, if it still exists at that time. Our end of season
find out.
our end of season hot takes and the mailbag for the week. You can send in your questions via Twitter at LockedOnFlyers. You can email us at LockedOnFlyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russell Met Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league like Locked On NHL. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.